Hi there, it's Adam here. So what I'm going to do in this session is to take you through some of the more basic areas where you might be able to go through and troubleshoot on your own in order to set your machine up in the best possible way to get the best experience. So quite often when you're installing a new program or starting a course, you'll probably get some guidance and some minimum requirements for your PC. Now, generally what will happen is they'll publish the bare minimum specs for that device to run. It won't necessarily give you the guidance on how it's going to run well and give you a good experience. So what I'm going to do is to show you some of the areas where you might go in and check, and just to set yourself up for success throughout the course. So first thing I want to talk about is DiskSpace. Now, typically DiskSpace, you're going to need a certain amount of disk space to install a certain application. So if you're doing something like hacking techniques or some of the Linux courses, you're going to be installing virtual machines on your laptop or desktop. So to do that, you're going to need to make sure you've got enough free space. So what we'll do here, I'm going to assume that I'm running this on my machine, and first thing I need to do is to check how much free space I've got. So to do that, you need to open up Windows Explorer, and in Windows 10 here, there's an icon down here on this taskbar. So I can either click on that, all right, and then it'll open up Windows Explorer. Or if you don't have that, then you can come to this search bar here and just type Explorer. Okay, and that'll open up the same window. Okay, so what I want to do, I need to go into this PC, and then you'll see here it shows up a summary of the hard drives that are installed on my machine. So in my case, in this laptop, I've got 3 hard drives, and well, it's actually 2 hard drives, but there are 2 of them are in split up into partitions. But for the purpose of this, I just want to focus on the C drive, because this is where the operating system installs. It's also where the applications by default are installed, so things like Office. So everything that takes up space is typically going to be installed on the C drive by default. Okay, so what I want to do, first thing I'll do in any instance is go through my documents and my desktop and also downloads, and just to see if there's any documents or files that I no longer need, or I can archive or move to an external hard drive or some sort of cloud service like Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that. So once I've done that, I would then come back just to see how much free space I have. And if I have enough, then great, I'd continue on. If I didn't, then what I need to do is to clean up some system files or temporary files. So the best way to do that is to use a thing called disk cleanup within Windows. So if you come down to the search again, you can just type disk, and you'll see it automatically populates up here with disk cleanup. So I'm going to run that. Now it's going to ask me for the drive, and yes, I'm going to use this as default. You can also run it on other drives if you have them, but for the purposes of this, we'll stick to C, hit OK. Now it comes up with this window here and a list of folders where I could potentially get space. So you can see in my case, I actually don't have much disk space that I can gain by doing this. It's only 7 meg, and this may be the same for yours. Or you might have, it might pick up that you've got gigabytes or more of temporary internet files, or even downloads if you haven't cleared that before. So I'm just going to run through this just to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to click OK, and then yes, I'm sure I want to delete them, delete files. Okay, so that's all it's going to do. It's going to go through and delete those files. It's not going to put them in the recycle bin, so just be mindful of that when you do this, the files or folders are gone. So now, once that's done, I can see I haven't got any disk space left, so it still hasn't really cleaned up anything, so it really hasn't got me any further than where I was before. So there is a feature within Windows 10 called Hibernation. Now, Hibernation is a service that allows you to save the running state of the system, so that when you come back to your machine in the morning, or you flip the lid back open on your laptop, it comes back and returns to the same running state. So the problem with that is it takes up disk space because it saves it to a file, and by default it's usually on the C drive. So what we can do is, if I really was desperate for disk space and I knew that I didn't want Hibernation, then I could turn that off. And so to turn that off, what you can do is you need to go through and do it through the commands prompt. So click on the search bar again and just start typing in command And you'll see once I start typing, it automatically populates some suggestions, and that's it, command prompt. Now what I'll do here is I'm going to right click on that and go run as administrator. And then it's going to prompt and say, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? I'm going to say yes. And now it's bringing up the command prompt. Now the command to run this is called power CFG and then space /off. Sorry, /H and then off. Okay, so that's it. So it hasn't sort of confirmed anything. It's just gone off and done it. Okay, so if I come back to the C drive now, and you can see it still says 19.9 gig. If I hit the refresh button, and there you go. So you can see then just by doing that command, it's automatically freed up nearly 7 gigs of space. So that's quite a hefty gain there just from running this one command. So just bear in mind when you do that, that Hibernation will no longer be enabled. So it means that you'll need to shut down your PC. And when you do close the lid, it'll go into a shutdown mode. Okay, so just something to be mindful of, but a good way to get some free space if you're really desperate. Okay, so if you want to turn that back on, then again, just come back to the command prompt. It's very similarly just you'll hit the arrow up to run the last commands, but it's essentially the same, except you just do /H space on. Okay, Hibernation should be turned back on now. I'll come back here and 26.2 free, so I'll hit refresh again. And there you go, it's gone back to 19.9 gig. Okay, so I'm going to leave that here for now, and then we'll talk about some of the other ways you can clean up space and do some basic checks on your system in one of the other sessions.